He's doing the Agora in March. Oh, that's next year. So if you're a fan of him.
DiStefano.
Is it DiStefano? Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. It's not DiStefano?
No, it's DiStefano. Chris DiStefano.
Do they know that in Italy?
I don't know. Are you talking about Italy, or New York, Italy?
I'm talking about it, Little Italy. Anyway, tickets for that guy a little bit later on. And then the Alter Ego Festival is happening in January in Los Angeles. And we got a whole bunch of fun for you planned for that. And I think one of your last chances to win, I don't know if this is the last week. We've been off and on with these, but at 5:30 every day this week, I will have a tickets, hotel, airfare, the whole bit for you and a pal. So listen for those keywords. Cavaliers play tonight in Dallas. You just heard that little ad there. Cavs Mavs tonight 8:30 here on WMMS. Both teams are around 500, so I think it'd be a good matchup. Did they win over the weekend?
They did. Evan Mobley's back. So they lost on Wednesday to the Suns, but the Suns are like the hottest team in the league right now. They've won 16 or 17 in a row, something like that. But they still hung with them, just couldn't get the win. But Evan Mobley came back, and they got the win on Saturday. Hopefully they can get a win streak going.
Yeah, boy, you better beat the Magic. You better beat the Orlando.
Yeah.
You go from the hottest team in basketball to the coldest team in basketball, or at least one of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, tonight, Cavaliers against the Mavericks in Dallas. And they're on the road for a bit. They will be back home on Sunday night to play the Jazz of Utah. When you think Jazz, Utah. Enes Kanter. You know Enes Kanter.
Yes.
He plays for the Boston Celtics, and he is changing his name. I don't think a ball player's changed his name since Meta World Peace. Remember Meta World Peace?
Yeah, Meta World Peace.
Chad Ochocinco.
Well, I'm thinking basketball.
Oh.
But you're right, Chad Ochocinco. But he changed his name back,
before?
right? It was Chad Johnson? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Ochocinco, but that was his number, right?
Yeah.
Even Meta World Peace isn't Meta World Peace anymore.
Did he go back to Ron Artest?
Well, no, here's what he did. He's now, he's Meta Sandiford Artest, okay? Because when you're in your 40s and you get a hot, young, new wife, you do whatever she wants you to do.
Sandiford.
That's her name,
Oh,
right?
really?
So he took his wife's name, right? You're like, I don't care. So he's Meta Sandiford Artest now, as of, I think, last year. He did this very recently. But Enes Kanter is changing his name to Enes Kanter Freedom. Because, of course, he's an immigrant, and this country has shown him many amazing things. And so that's what he's changing his name to.
And he's more known for trolling LeBron than he is for his basketball career. Because
does he troll LeBron?
He trolls LeBron all the time about, he's like, LeBron, you're so outspoken about human rights. What about China? Give us your thoughts on China and how they treat people.
Yeah, but none of these guys are speaking out on China.
Right.
China. Nobody in their right mind in the NBA is trolling China.
Right, because the NBA has a huge audience in China. And they want to continue to have that.
Everybody greases up and grabs ankle for China because it's a global economy. And they have 1 billion people there.
China loves basketball?
China loves basketball.
Yes.
I don't know.
You ever heard of Jeremy Lin? Thank you very much.
No.
You ever heard of Yao Ming? Thank you very much.
Merrily Lin.
You ever heard of Lin Sanity?
Asia in general loves basketball. Like when I was in the Philippines, that was their favorite sport. I'm like, you guys know you're not tall, right?
Right.
Maybe
that's why.
They love basketball, and it's one of those things where it's a simple game to play, whereas basketball or football and baseball, those aren't nearly as accessible because you need so much equipment and so many people to play.
What about soccer?
Yeah, soccer's the biggest.
Soccer's the biggest,
But I wonder what makes a country or a culture gravitate to soccer and what makes you gravitate to basketball.
Well, everyone but us gravitates towards soccer.
Yeah.
Well, no,
I don't know why.
But what Bill's describing is correct. There are some countries basketball's way bigger than soccer is, and I wonder why that is.
I think it has to do with television a lot, and Michael Jordan was such a big influence that he became this global icon, and they picked up on that in China and in the Philippines, and it became like a sensation there.
But there also had to be kids in the Philippines kicking a ball around.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not really. Like when I was there, I never, nobody ever really talked about that. Boxing and basketball were the biggest sports in the Philippines when I was there. And I imagine it's about the same still.
Well, here's Enes Kanter talking about changing his name.
So talk to me about the name change, Enes Kanter Freedom.
I think, as you guys know, that's the one thing my whole life I try to fight for. When I came to America, to me it was so amazing because, here there is freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and freedom of press, which I didn't have any of those with Turkey. That's why I wanted to, and freedom also.
Boy, he picked a really bad time to change his name because we're not going to have many of those things that he just mentioned much longer. So, his timing could not have been worse. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, those things are all quietly going away. So, boy, he's going to have egg on his face in about 2 or 3 years.
Years.
He's going to call himself, he's going to have to go back to Enes Kanter World Peace.
Or he was born in Switzerland, so he could go to Switzerland and be Enes Kanter, I'm not getting involved.
Enes Kanter Red Cross. Yeah, there might be
I'm just
some.
gonna mind my business.
Figure it out.
Neutral.
Side note, just something I'm curious about. If someone comes here on a work visa and they have a kid here, is that kid an American citizen now? Is that like...
If they have a child, any child born here is a naturalized citizen.
Well, that's what I mean. But what if the child, what if someone was pregnant before they came over here, and then they came over here on like a work visa, and then they just happen to have the kid here?
Someone who's pregnant and... I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if that counts as an anchor baby.
Well, if the child's... Well, anchor baby is a right-wing talking point. But I'm saying a naturalized citizen, if that baby is born here, then yeah.
It's an American.
But if you are pregnant and come over here on a work visa, that's pretty transparent. You know what I mean? Okay. They're going to be like, Now, again, I don't know how something like that works right now.
Okay.
If you're really, really trying to get over here and you're like 8.5 months pregnant, they're going to be like, well, we see what's going on here.
Well, because I heard,
You're not cleaning people's houses when you're ready to pop with a kid. Maybe you are. What do I know?
Well, I know, they talk about on Fox News all the time where these Mexican women cross the border and then they have their kid.
Yes, of course.
But I'm talking. But
it's Fox News.
People who were legitimately I was just over here. I gave birth a little too early, and now my kid's a citizen. I didn't plan on it, but now I'm here.
Right. And by the way, it's not, if you're some woman from Guatemala and you have your kid here, it's not like your kid automatically has an amazing life. He's still, your parents, your mom's Guatemalan. Maybe you have both of them, maybe you don't. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. You probably want to contact someone from
the embassy.
Immigration and Naturalization Services.
Okay.
Alan Cox Show After Hours line, we get a lot of messages while we were on vacation. So we'll go through some of them today. Anytime you want to just leave us a quick message, you can. It's 216-986-8903.
Hey, Alan. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I was listening to the podcast episode, and I had a thought. You said that you had a day at your daughter's school, and you were reading a book in front of the class, and you said that one of the kids there recognized you, but wasn't sure where the kid recognized you from. Is it possible that kid thought that you were Kurt Russell? And I just think that, it's possible. I watched Big Trouble in Little China when I was a kid, so maybe that kid's a big, fan of The Thing or something. just a thought. Bye.
Right, thank you. No, the reason that I couldn't figure out why the kid thought, I read to my daughter's kindergarten class a week before last, and this kid goes, "You look familiar." And the reason that I couldn't figure that out is because I was wearing a mask. So there was first of all, the Kurt Russell thing was when I had long hair, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about the hair. It's only about the hair. I don't look like anybody. It's only about the hair. When my hair was still kind of different and kind of blonder, everybody goes, "Hey, man, you ever tell you look like Keith Urban?" I go, "It's just the hair. Mm-hmm. There's nothing south of the forehead that looks anything like." And so when my hair was longer, everybody would go Kurt Russell. So she's doing a deep dive there. I get what you're doing. But I still couldn't figure out how that kid said, unless he was just jabbing me. In which case,
a 5-year-old's trolling you?
What about candy and giving him some if that was the case?
You look familiar.
Yeah, right. Or like his dad prepped him, or what do I know? But I had
if you see this guy today,
say it.
Make sure you say, "I recognize you, but I don't know where."
Well, yeah, because they inform the parents who's going to be doing what, whatever. My curiosity didn't last any longer than being in that classroom. But the kid, he was the only kid that walked up to me and said that. So Thank you, ma'am. I get what you're doing. I don't. By the way, Kurt Russell, God bless that guy. Still working, still doing stuff. People forget Kurt Russell. If you're old enough to remember, Kurt Russell in the 70s, he was the entire Disney franchise.
What?
Oh, yeah.
In the late 60s, Kurt Russell signed a decade-long contract with Disney. So if you go back late 60s, early 70s, all those like madcap live-action Disney movies had Kurt Russell in them.
He did a bunch of voice work, too, I believe.
He was the kid. Remember, he was like early on, he was super, I don't remember the movie, but it was like the famous one where he was like a star basketball player or something, or people older than me might remember those, but yeah, he was on. That's why when he got out of that Disney contract, he starts doing like Used Cars, which was really raunchy, and Escape from New York, which was, he was trying to like harden his image because he was doing all these aw shucks good old boy Disney movies, but he was like the entire Disney movie franchise when he was a young man.
Captain Ron.
That is an underrated movie,
was
Captain Ron.
just going to say that. It is a very funny movie.
Yeah, it's great. No, he's been an actor his whole life. He started doing TV when he was 12, and he was like basically the guy that did Disney movies in the late 60s and 70s.
I had no idea. That's so funny. I'm just
Mosby's Marauders, the one and only Genuine Family Band. I
get Kurt Russell.
The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes is what I'm thinking, where he plays like a robot or something, like a human robot. That was a big movie for them. He did Charlie and the Angel. He did Superdad. All the 70s were doing Kurt Russell Disney movies.
I get Kurt Russell and Jeff Bridges mixed up.
You shouldn't do that.
Not all the time, but they look the same. Like when you say Kurt Russell, I picture Jeff Bridges.
People forget, though, how many great movies have had Kurt Russell in them. He's just always kind of been there, so people take him for granted.
I'm a big fan of Kurt Russell.
Love Kurt Russell.
And I love that he is just Kurt Russell in every, like, he's like one of my favorites is Tombstone, where everybody else is kind of adapting their language and like the way they're speaking. They're trying to make it feel like they're in that time. And then Kurt Russell is just like, howdy, partner. Like he's just like,
I'm Kurt Russell.
He's not changing a thing.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Like he's doing basically John Wayne, but his version of John Wayne, and it's very funny.
It's like, look, the handlebar mustache is going to do all the work in this movie, okay? But he's Mr. Nobody in the Fast and Furious movies. He's Ego in the MCU, right?
Yeah, you got the Escape from New York franchise, which are very fun movies, especially if you watch them now. They don't quite hold up, but they're still very entertaining.
For that time, they were great.
They were great. But like they're still really fun. I don't know if you would like it if you haven't seen it, but it would be interesting to see someone that didn't grow up watching it react to it now.
I think one of the most underrated movies that anybody's ever done, he just happens to be in it, is a movie called Breakdown, where he and his wife, late 90s, he and his wife, their car breaks down, and like this trucker takes the wife to go get help or something, but then he kidnaps her. And have you ever seen Breakdown?
I've never seen Breakdown.
It's bananas. Good movie. Movie called Bone Tomahawk I've talked about before. It will F you up for life.
Yeah, I never watched that
he was in years ago.
Why?
There's one particular scene that has become legendary. I was watching it hammered. We were in Toronto, and we had just gotten back from going out. And so Gwen's passed out, and I'm watching TV. At like 2 a.m, this Bone Tomahawk comes on, and it's like a Western that takes an extraordinarily grisly turn halfway through. And you don't really... I'm not going to spoil it.
It's old.
It's 2015. It's not that old. It's not one of the Disney movies from the 70s. Now, watch Bone Tomahawk, and you'll know precisely what scene I'm talking about. But it immediately put it on the list of like the movies with like these effed up scenes, and and he was in that.
I think Big Trouble in Little China and Overboard, like we had those taped off of TV, and so like we just had those on VHS. Not like we bought them, but just had a free preview weekend on HBO and recorded them. And I watched those again and again and again. I loved Overboard.
Yeah.
Also,
Hateful Eight is good in that.
Hateful Eight's great, and what's the one? Death Proof. The best part of that whole thing.
I still have never seen Death Proof.
He's great in it.
Yeah, he's a good heavy. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll tell you what I don't like, though. I'll tell you what I don't like.
Getting compared to him.
No, because I was thinking of, listen, I could do worse. I mean, I don't see it, but I got it a lot. So whatever. He was in this movie called Steven Seagal with Executive Decision.
Oh,
remember
yeah,
that?
I remember that
Where
one.
they sold you the movie because it was a Kurt Russell movie with Steven Seagal, except Kurt Russell dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie. So you're like, and that pisses me off. We just started watching this show that did the exact same thing, where they lure you in with an actor you like. Mm-hmm. And then they kill him off in what's that?
Game of Thrones.
I didn't watch. Oh, Sean Bean.
Well, they just kill everybody.
But that was the end. But that was the end of the season, right?
Well, it's typically episode 9 of every season. You're going to lose a major character, and you're like, "What the hell? Like we just got here."
Right. But I'm talking episode 1.
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away. Paramount Plus rolled out this show called Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Renner, right? And Kyle Chandler and like a handful of people I really like in this show. It's about this family that kind of runs these prisons in this town in Michigan, blah, blah, blah. And the actor that drew me in is killed in the first episode. And then I go, okay, I'm going to keep going with this because maybe they'll do a bunch of flashbacks. Maybe episode 1 was a shoot forward or something. But if he's gone in episode 2 and 3, I'm out.
They kind of did that with Watchmen with the guy from Miami Vice.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
No. Don
Johnson.
Don Johnson, yeah. So
the TV show, not the movie.
Yeah, the TV show. But I mean,
he lasted through the whole season, I thought. Didn't
he gets killed.
Oh, he does?
But then they have a lot of flashbacks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how, and that's almost becoming a trope now, where it's like your character is dead, but you still are in every episode because they do so many flashbacks.
Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for. I would like to see, and I don't know why it never happened, speaking of Kurt Russell, I would love to see a Tango and Cash sequel. Get Stallone, who's friggin' 80, and get Kurt Russell,
who's almost 80,
and do a Tango and Cash sequel.
Tango and Tash.
You know what I would...
Kango and Tash.
Yeah.
I'm Kango and I'm Tash. Yeah.
I was watching a lot of Columbo this weekend.
Why? Other than it's a great show. Why were you? Cozy TV?
My buddy brought it up on my podcast. AJ brought it up, and he's like, "Have you ever watched Columbo?" And I was like, "Not really." And they have all the episodes on Peacock, so I was just like binging them all weekend, and it's such a fun show because he's so Is
he a cop or something?
He's a
detective?
he's a lieutenant, and he just solves all these murders, but they're always rich people murdering people.
Yeah.
And they always think they get away with it. But Columbo's got just one more thing.
I was...
the twist.
Well, it's weird, though, because I was reading an article about a month ago about, and it was similar to what they wrote about The Sopranos. They were like, why are millennials digging into Columbo all of a sudden? There was this big article on why, younger people were all about Columbo all of a sudden. And I can only assume it's because there's all these retro cable channels now that show these shows.
Or streaming.
Yeah. And so this is they have every episode on Peacock, and it's also really interesting just to see what it was like because these start in 1971, and seeing the world and seeing how people interact and seeing what television's idea of a rich person was then.
Right.
It's very fun. I really enjoy it. And it's also, my favorite part is whenever he figures out the crime, they're always like, you got me, Columbo. Let's go to jail.
Right,
they're I don't give it. They're like, you bested me. And I'm like, can we get rich people to act like this again?
It's
to admit they're wrong.
It's like the old courtroom dramas.
Yeah.
They're like, that's right, I did it.
Yeah.
Law and Order,
And
where
it's
they
just
admit on the stand.
It's like, hey, shut up. I'm your lawyer. Just don't say anything.
Well, Columbo's funny just for Peter Falk. He was great. But
he's so good.
The only problem with Columbo is, and a lot of the crime dramas of that era, is that you knew who the murderer was because it was the most famous guest star of the week. So it would be like whoever was really famous that week. Like if Jose Ferrer shows up, you know he's the killer.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Columbo, they show you who the murderer is at the beginning of every episode. Yeah, at the beginning of every episode, you know who the murderer is.
Oh, it's a backwards work.
But the way it's fun watching Columbo figure it out because he's just so observant and just always around too. He's just always
happens to be there.
He's always around.
He's
just in people's houses. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, the maid let me in."
He's like, "Let me ask you just one more thing."
Yeah, a lot of just one more thing.
One more thing, and then they give it up. Mm-hmm. Again, I haven't watched these as an adult. I remember Columbo literally from when I was a kid, so I'd have to go back and watch them.
They're not as they're well acted, and some of them are really long because they're all like movies.
Yeah, they're like an hour and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah,
right?
there's some episodes that are an hour and 36 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like a 2 hour, like that's a 2 hour block that you're taking up on broadcast TV back in the day. And there's a lot of, I mean, you got to be patient with these shows.
But those were the Columbo special event movies, weren't they? The show itself was still like an hour procedural, I thought.
It's the shortest episode I've seen is an hour and 16 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So like they were always pretty long. Because there's not like a ton of episodes. I don't know if they split them up in 2 parts when they originally aired them, but for right now, like the way that they're listed on Peacock is like an hour and 16 minutes, sometimes an hour 20.
Well, plus they'd keep bringing him back too. The heyday was in the 70s, but they would keep bringing Peter Falk back. He died a long time ago.
Yeah.
But they knew how popular the character was. So they were making Columbo movies until
like 2003.
Yeah, like the early aughts. They were doing,
and it's very, like, I just finished an episode where Columbo was in England. Like, they're like, you're such a good detective, or such a good lieutenant. We're going to fly you over here. And then there just happened to be a murder by some rich people. And Columbo's like, oh, I'll help out on the case.
Yeah. Hey, we got a poor guy who killed somebody over there. That's not for me. Just one more thing.
Right. I want to do a mashup of Columbo, but he's working on the first 48. And we don't talk to cops. Just one more thing.
This is a prescription for murder. I liked Heart to Heart. That was my show as a kid. Heart to Heart with what's his name, Robert Wagner. Okay, listen, I got to take a break here. If you want to get a text for anything, 35192. You can listen wherever you are on the iHeartRadio app.
The Alan Cox Show on 1